Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. Today I want to talk about Microsoft increasing the price of their first-party games to $80 starting this holiday. It has not taken long since Nintendo opened the floodgates with their $80 Mario Kart World that other big players are already starting to follow suit. And that really sucks. Honestly, this is a huge thing to have happen so quickly. I knew it was only a matter of time once Nintendo poked the bear of $80 games. Microsoft just decided to hop on board right away. But not only are they doing $80 games, they're also raising the price of their consoles by $100. I can't think of a single time in our consoles history in the last 9 generations of consoles where a console's gotten more expensive midway through a generation. That's insane to me. An Xbox Series X is going to be $600. What in the world are they thinking? I've seen this thing go as cheap as $350. This is not the leading console in the market right now. Raising the price will not do anything good for your bottom line. I guarantee it. No one's like going out now and saying, oh, now that it's $600, I'm buying an Xbox Series X. Absolutely. Please. Thank you, Microsoft. I'm not dogging on their console. I think the Series X is fantastic, but it's not a $600 console. I mean, we see Sony do this as well with their reworks. Typically, when you see a rework like a Slim model or something, the components at that point are cheaper than they were when they first launched, like half a decade ago. So when they do a Slim version, it's cheaper because it's cheaper for them to produce now. And so it just makes sense. You're getting a slimmed down model. The price, the sales are going down over time. Might as well give the consumer more value. But now we're doing the exact opposite. We're just seeing prices go up. The PlayStation 5 did this. It wasn't a huge increase. It wasn't $100 increase, but they are more expensive than they were at launch initially, which is just mind-boggling to me. This is part of the reason I ended up pulling the trigger on a Switch 2 pre-order. Like I said before in many of my videos, I did have the money saved up. I have been saving up for a while for this specific reason, and I don't want the console to go up later. Now, Microsoft did cite tariffs, not specifically tariffs, they said market conditions, but with the US and everything being crazy with tariffs, I think that's 100% a concern. I'm not going to dog on that at all. And they also cite like the increasing development costs for their games as a big factor in bumping up to $80. That is a load of bull crap. I've talked about this ad nauseum at this point. We just barely got used to $70 games this generation. Wait at least one more generation. Give us a new console before you start doing $80 games. Nintendo doesn't count. They're halfway through this generation here. We need to wait until the full cycle goes around. It's so weird to me that they're doing this so early. But that's beside the point here. What I really want to talk about is the rising production costs here. We've seen so many awful AAA games come out in the last few years, probably even the last decade, that have cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make. If you can just point out a couple like Concord and Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, there are a plethora of other ones as well that just really missed the mark, overestimated who was actually going to pay for it or play it in the first place. A huge focus on the live service model and everything. It seems like everything is going that direction for some reason, at least in the AAA space. Why are they going so hard on these $100 million or multi-$100 million projects that take more than half a decade to develop, and they're just banking on it making a ton of money? Why not make more smaller sized games with less people on the team? You don't need 500 people on this live service project, and that's probably not going to do well anyway. Even if it does well, it needs to do exceptionally well to make back all that money you spent on it for development and then for marketing. Make smaller teams making different projects. This worked extremely well back in the day in the earlier generations. Lots of teams had people making multiple games. If you look back at Rare on the Nintendo 64 era, they were pumping out games, multiple games every year, and they were all bangers for the most part. If you just look at their history, you've got Banjo-Kazooie, you had Jet Force Gemini, you had Blast Corps, you had Banjo-Tooie, you had Conker's Bad Fur Day, you had Donkey Kong 64, you had GoldenEye 007, you had Perfect Dark, all within a few years of each other. And all of those games, without exception, are really good at the very least. Like Jet Force Gemini, maybe you could say, Blast Core maybe on the weaker side, but they were doing something new and fresh and interesting. It's because they didn't have to focus their entire team on one gigantic game and risk losing it all there. They made a bunch of stuff. They put their eggs in a lot of different baskets, and that worked extremely well. And I think that they should go back to doing that. Spread that money out more into a bunch of different smaller projects that are more manageable, that don't have an enormous scope, and that don't need to be a live service, that don't need to be fed with a ton of updates and everything all the time. This isn't going to work moving forward. I know that they're trying their best here to like squeeze out every penny from the consumer. And for all the people going to bat for these big corporations moving stuff up to $80 games, you suck. You really do. They don't need your help. These multi-billion-dollar corporations don't need you going to bat for them. And it doesn't help anyone if you're defending $80 games. Zero people. You can talk about how games were expensive back in the day. They were, absolutely. When the medium was fairly new and coming to like home consoles were pretty new to the market. And then they went down. We went from games being pretty expensive to, like, if you move things up with inflation and everything, they were pretty expensive back in the day. But also discretionary income was much more back in the day as well. Things are much tighter now, and we don't need to see that go back up. They went down because people were taking less risks with everything. They're taking more risks. They're making cooler games, but they're making smaller projects as well. They didn't have the luxury of like $100 million budgets and everything. So I'm really sick of seeing that discourse. People really just defending $80 games because they were expensive back in the day. Just get out of here. We want gaming to be more accessible, not less. And this is what's happening here. We're seeing less accessibility now because Microsoft is doing this, following in with suit with Nintendo. I'm assuming. I'm sure that the writing was on the wall at some point with market conditions and ballooning projects and everything, but it's just sad to see that it's already happening. I think Sony could do a really cool thing and really double down on the $70 price point. Not that that's a cheap game by any metric, but if they did the thing where when they backslapped Xbox One with the PlayStation 4 and said, hey, it's $400. They're doing $500, we're doing $400. You can share your games with everybody. If they went back to that, they said something like this, they dropped this is going to be $70. We're not moving to the $80 mark, the $80 games. That'd go really like stupid good for the brand. I don't think they're going to do that. With the way that Sony charged out of the nose for the PlayStation 5 Pro, I absolutely don't think they're going to do that, but it would be a really cool thing. We need someone in the space to make a good play, make a good, like, direction for the gaming industry going forward, or at least give us some competition. But at this point, it's basically an oligarchy. You've got three big companies that are gonna put their games out at a pretty similar price because they know they can. With Nintendo Switch selling so exceptionally well, like I know they probably had more units available to sell, but with the scarcity and everything, and people worrying about tariffs, worrying about market conditions, there was like the big scare with, are we even going to get the pre-orders in the US? Are we going to get them on time? It caused some pandemonium, and people just want their console. They want to make sure they get it here. So now it feels like even more so that they can charge whatever they want and get away with it. It just sucks to see, honestly. I didn't expect Microsoft to be the one to make the move first off. I did not think that they would increase their prices at all. I think part of the reason Microsoft is moving forward like this is so they can push Game Pass even more. My theory is they're saying some of our first party games are going to go up to $80 pretty soon, but you still have Game Pass that you could go to. You could just go check that out for a monthly or yearly fee, and then you don't have to worry about these big, scary price games. You can just get them all for free day one instead. I think that's kind of their move. They clearly see that Game Pass is their moneymaker. I don't think they have a ton of faith in their consoles moving forward. I have heard rumors that they're going to be releasing another console, and they're planning on like a physical games console going on to the next generation. Talks of a handheld coming out next year, I believe, or maybe late this year. So I think they're still interested in the hardware game, at least for now. But they clearly see that software is their main selling point at this point. So I think if they're pricing their stuff really high on their first party releases, they're just incentivizing Game Pass more. Which I guess that's a decent marketing strategy here. They're like, no one's buying our games full price anyway. If we price them up even higher, maybe more people will subscribe to Game Pass. So maybe that's their model. But I am surprised that Microsoft Microsoft is doing it since they're so far on the back foot. I really expected Sony to be the first one to move. This is also not super encouraging for all the GTA fans. GTA 6 got delayed until next May, end of next May, so we're a year out now, and it's probably going to be $100. Like, let's just be real. It's going to be the most expensive game ever. We already know. We see the writing on the wall. They know they can charge whatever the heck they want for that game, and everyone will buy it. So be prepared to spend out the nose for that one too. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Did you expect Microsoft to move this fast? What do you think of $80 games? I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.